Thank you so much, Olivia. That's an optimistic view. Thank you for that. And personal opinion, WordPress should do more about, looking in the enterprise world as Typo 3 is doing. But maybe that's just me or anybody else. We're three. We're four. We should. All right. So, moving on. Next presentation by Vlad. Come on, Vlad, on the stage. Collective governance and how to fund it. The stage is yours.
Thank you, thank you. Oh my God, and my clicker even works. This is amazing. Yeah, let's give it a sec. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Vlad. Thanks for coming. It's amazing to be here. I actually used to live here and have lunch upstairs all the time, so it's super surreal to be speaking here. But I'm Vlad. I work on software and philosophy that contributes to the public good. I'm a maintainer of the open source pledge. I work on ThanksDev, and I'm also doing a PhD in the philosophy of exploitation at the University of Edinburgh, which we'll tie in with a little bit. I'm a cat sitter, so if you have any cats that need sitting, just let me know and we can figure it out. Thank you. All right, so 12 October 2024, Matt removes advanced custom fields from WordPress.org. All right, and so that's a great, so why boo is the topic of my talk, right? Let's think about it. So look, there's so many people here that know way more about WordPress than I do. I'm just gonna tell you my impressions and then we can talk about what makes sense to you guys. Removing the plugin from the package manager is basically a supply chain attack, right? Like people, users are downloading certain software that they expect to do a certain thing, and then actually the software is taken out from under them and it's doing something else. That's scary. DHH says, what if this happened with NPM, right? So Microsoft owns GitHub and GitHub controls NPM. Imagine if Microsoft got into a dispute with Meta, they got into a fight, and then Microsoft says, I'm gonna take over React and we're gonna make it Microsoft React and it's gonna be different, right? Like that's not good. But why is it not good? And so I'm gonna give you my theory, okay? And we can talk about it together. I think this is deceptive illicit power. Okay, that's a lot of words, what does it mean? I think, so power, Stephen Luke says the power is the ability to affect someone contrary to their interests. And so this is quite transparently power because, the owners of the websites, it's not in their interest for their software to be changed, right? It might also affect their job if their job depends on, their WordPress websites. I think it's illicit because you'd think that it's for the user to have control over their website. It's not for some third party to control the website. But importantly, it's deceptive because when people, sign up for, to use WordPress, they don't think that this might happen, right? Like you don't think like, oh, someone might shuffle some things around in the package manager and change all my code. So this is especially bad because, people say all the time when WordPress runs on, 33% of the web. This affects a lot of people. If it's affecting a couple of people, it's, still bad, but less of a deal. If it affects a lot of users of the internet, this is spooky, right? But what I want to talk about is DHH also says this is an unprecedented breach of open source norms. And then we have Ian Poulsen from WP Engine says that the removal of this plugin is inconsistent with open source values and principles. So, but what are these values and principles, right? Like it got me thinking, like, is it really violating specifically open source values and principles? Well, obviously open source is a software license. It doesn't say stuff about governance. It says about what we can do with the software, right? But because it doesn't say any more than that, so basically Matt in an interview said, well, if I started doing some evil monopoly stuff, people could just fork the software. And that's true, and that's great, right? And we love open source for that. But what people can't do is, fork all of the entire ecosystem and then the services and everything that people depend on in WordPress. So, if Nginx does something bad, you can fork Nginx and that's fine. But the people, who maintain Nginx can't shut down your website, right? So that's a little bit different. And so basically open source can sometimes offer us a deceptive freedom because DHH says open source sometimes can provide the veil over true power and who has that power. And so we see that happening here because you think it's open source and we all share control and it's fine, but actually that's deceptive because one entity controls the software, right? So open source is about source code, but to prevent harmful power, we need norms about more than just the source code. We need norms about governance. So open source is not enough to prevent this kind of problem, right? what should we do? It was, we should spread out software governance. This is very, there's a lot of stuff to think about, but I'm just going to talk about one or two things that pop up for me here. One thing is services, right? There's plenty of services like package managers that everyone uses, that everyone depends on, and companies should, get together and maintain these together. There shouldn't be one company controlling the services that, again, are in addition to the source code. Ideally, there would be some kind of like federated system situation where there's no one package manager or whatever, but there's, a bunch of systems that work together. Aspire Press, I think, is doing something like this. That's great. I don't know the details, but it sounds cool. The other thing I want to talk about is epistemic inclusion. So epistemic, again, funny word, just means related to knowledge. So what I mean here is including everyone's knowledge. So there's a difference in between, there's a difference in between two scenarios. One where the goal is predetermined by a party and we talk about things, just to seem like we're talking about things. And the other situation is deliberative governance, where we talk about what to do together, but then we have to explain our reasons for doing things. And so that's an exercise in deciding together, not just satisfying some predetermined outcome. So that's one thing that can be done. And that's especially important because people might be, a maintainer might be an expert in some technical thing, but no one person is an expert in everything, right? So everyone has epistemic blind spots, so blind spots of knowledge. And it's particularly important to work together to cover each other's weaknesses in that way. And this particularly relates to governance, And the other thing is people who are affected by a certain policy, like the website user, should probably have a say in how to shape it, not only because it affects them, but because they probably know best as the users, what should be done. Particularly when you exclude some people from the conversation, even, maybe it's people that you don't like or you think are bad, obviously there's all sorts of scenarios, but generally if you silence people, you're actually silencing way more people. And, I saw this talking to people in WordPress, people get intimidated and scared, and then, you're actually silencing a lot of the community that you'd want to have a conversation with. Last thing I want to talk about is funding. If funding and governance are connected, right? So if you have someone who, there's one company funding an ecosystem, it's way easier for them to have control over it. If we have distributed funding, there's less of a chance for a monopoly of power. Five for the Future has two buckets for funding. It has employee time and resources, but there's a bucket that we're missing out on. And here I want to talk about the Open Source Pledge, which is a project that I work on. The Open Source Pledge is an initiative where, thank you. The Open Source Pledge is an initiative where we ask companies to pay the maintainers of the software that they depend on. Right now, we're saying the ask is $2,000 per developer employed at the company per year. This is in addition to employee time and resources, which many companies give and is amazing. And unlike Five for the Future, this means that contributors can get paid even if they don't work for a company that is contributing to that project. Right? Independent contributors can also get paid, and all the money goes to maintainers. We don't take any of the money. What we offer to companies that take the pledge is, marketing, and you can show that you're a thought leader by taking the pledge, which is a big deal for a lot of companies. We promoted our member companies in Times Square in October. We did it again in May. We also had this ad campaign that some people love, some people hate. It's slightly sassy. We're poking fun at executives that don't pay maintainers. We've raised over $2.5 million. Our members have. Thank you. Thank you. Over the past year. And these are some of our member companies. This initiative is funded by Sentry, and I'm very grateful for that. And Chad Whitaker does so much work to run this. This is our website. Come say hi. We welcome community discussion. And just to end, I want to say, let's not do BDFL anymore. When I hear BDFL, I just hear, I haven't thought about governance. It's BDFL. It's supposed to be kind of cute. It's kind of coy. I don't think that's good. I don't think that helps us have good governance. A lot of people that I spoke to in the WordPress community were jaded, like, what can we do? And I understand that, and that's intimidating and upsetting. But at the same time, it's important for us to get together and decide what kind of governance we want to ask for, even if it's difficult. Open source gave us a brand and a set of principles for sharing software, and that's amazing, and we love open source, but maybe we need some kind of open governance, like set of principles that we can work on together, whatever that looks like. Let's think about this together, and I'm in the Five for the Future channel in the Making WordPress Slack, and I'd love to talk to you there, and thank you so much.